Title of the talk is it's a proposal to create an analog of a Mars settlement here on Earth. And I'll be talking about the different structures you might build and the activities you might do there, especially open to the public. By the way, my name is Bruce Mackenzie. I've been active in the Mars Society since the very beginning. I was on the steering committee, still am. And I also helped found the Mars University, the Mars Foundation, which is working on designs for settlement of Mars. I'm also active in the NSS. And I recommend all those organizations, as well as SEDS and AIAA. Okay, so there are many analog Mars I'm not sure what you call them, analog Mars sites where there will be a structure, you know, a spacecraft or an imitation lander or inflatable thing. They're almost always assumed to be brought from Earth, and crews will go there for a week or several months at a time and act as if they were on Mars, as if they were on a round trip mission for 1 week or 30 days or a few months to Mars. And there's almost nothing about how you would settle Mars, what kind of construction you would do, what kind of resources you would use. There's a little bit, but not much. Almost all of the analog sites assume that you are on a short mission to Mars. And I'm proposing that it's time that we have an analog site that is working on construction and living permanently on Mars. So here is an abstract which did not make it onto the web. There won't be a test, you don't have to read it, but have one site and encourage all the organizations to build a mock-up of what they would build if they were constructing it from in situ resources. We've identified a possible site in Florida near the Kennedy Center, but there's a lot of other possible sites, especially out west in Mars-like environments. And there is a related building that is being planned and funded that will use the, it won't look like a Mars habitat, but it will be furnished as if it was furnished from plastics derived from algae on Mars. And anyway, so this could be an exclusive Mars Society project, or it could be a group of other of multiple space organizations, commercial companies, and government agencies, et cetera. For example, an agricultural company might build and sponsor a greenhouse. A construction company might build and sponsor something. This is still very much in the suggestion proposal stage, and I'm using this presentation to figure out how much interest there is. So I'm going to be asking anybody who is interested to contact me. My address is at the bottom of some of the slides. And if we don't get a lot of interest, I will just drop it. By the way, I had a very similar proposal more than 10 years ago, which did not get a lot of interest. So we'll see. Okay, so on one site, encourage anyone who is going to build a mock-up of a Mars habitat, build it at that site. There is an echo, if somebody can work on that. So, and I propose that we hopefully build up to the point where we have a series of structures representing different technologies as they might have. I'm going to turn my volume down, see if my echo is on this end. So build a series of habitats as if they represented building a Mars settlement as the technologies improve. So you might first build an inflatable structure, then a fiberglass structure, then a masonry structure, then a metal structure. Okay. My arrow key didn't work for a moment. Here's a much earlier design. It would have been a fake crater. So you build a circular building and use that as hotel rooms and office space and classrooms, and then cover it over to look like a crater and build the various habitats inside the crater. This was proposed for a real location just south of the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center. So that curved road is a real road. And if you're standing in the bottom of this crater, you could look around and not see any Florida palm trees, only see a Mars crater and a number of structures built as if they were built on Mars, starting with the initial habitats brought from Earth, but then moving into the various technologies. This is kind of out of date, so I won't dwell on it. Here's a artist's conception of our plan out in California, near the Mojave National Preserve, and anyway, just a variety of different structures that you could build there, including vehicles and small items. I said there's been very little actual deployment on Mars in situ constructed materials, but here is one of them. Most of you will recognize MDRS at the bottom and try to figure out which of those structures was built using in situ materials. It's not the greenhouse on the left, it's not the white hab, it's not the observatory in the top. Georgy Petrov built that arch in the lower left. Tell me if you can see my cursor. So, I'm sorry, lower right. So in the lower right, he used stone and cement to build, he tried to build a large vault. At the upper right, there he is in the MDRS spacesuits, mixing cement in a wheelbarrow, collected rocks, and tried to build a vault as if you would build on Mars. And he only got, like half a meter out. It just was too hard and not appropriate, didn't have the right equipment, no automation. So this is one of the attempts to build at an analog site using in situ materials. Okay, so we've identified a possible site down in Florida. There already is funding for an officially unrelated building. At the bottom is my concept of what it would be. And it was going to be a bioplastics from algae demonstration. So there'd be a few panels, which are not shown, that would grow algae. And then the algae could be turned into plastics, polymers, a wide variety of polymers. The upper right is the artist's conception of it, which is nothing like what is going to be built. But anyway, there is funding for this and a definite location. We're hoping to build next to it, even though there's no official connection. So anyway, this is called the Space Tree House, and it's supposed to be finished within a year, which is a very tight schedule. But as I said, the interior furnishings would imitate Mars furnishings made from carbon dioxide and algae. We also have the Space Development Network, led by Doug Plata, has an inflatable mock-up of a lunar base, very large, bigger than much larger than a tennis court. And he is hoping to have his second generation displayed at the same site. So, I said that, so please contact me at that address, bmackenzie@alum.mit.edu, if you're interested in helping. You can very much help set the direction of it and help it happen. So we need help identifying corporate sponsors, various other groups that want to get involved in addition to the Mars Society, help designing the structures, publicity, writing, artwork. Let's see. So I'm next going to talk about some of the possible designs if I were doing it. Many of these slides were borrowed from a previous proposal to the Mars Society many years ago. So one of the best shapes to use is cylinders. You can make these cylinders on Mars using fiberglass in a solar furnace and polyester made chemically or made from the algae. In the lower right is a makerspace as if it might be on Mars. Lower left is a similar fiberglass tank made on Earth. Just to, it's a very useful shape on Mars and holds pressure quite well. So the green oval shows an assembly tent, an inflatable tent brought from Earth where you would manufacture these fiberglass cylinders made from in situ materials. The cross-section of the assembly tent might look like this, 12 meters high. You can make a 5-meter cylinder in it. And all of the platforms and balconies inside could be made after you arrive on Mars. So this is what the Mars version of the assembly tent would look like. But on Earth, you might make it out of more conventional materials, rigid, and have it as a display hall. You can have special functions there. So the upper left shows the Mars version. The center of the slide shows what you might build on Earth. So you can have school groups come in, you can have exhibits, you can have special functions in there. And then in the bottom basement would be the utilities and for catering staff. So here's kind of a public pavilion that would look like a Mars structure. One thing you can do okay, the cylinders are pretty tight. So if we want to be open to the public, say have a school group come in, you design 2 cylinders. On the far right is like a living room, and the far left might be a kitchen. And you could cut these cylinders in half, move them apart, put a flat floor between them, and you could have a whole classroom school group come in and tour this without the confines. And to show how badly we need help with graphics, you can look at this hand-drawn drawing of mine. Okay, another design which I pioneered decades ago is masonry structures covered with dirt to hold the pressure. And I won't go into details, but I'd love to tell you about the hillside settlement in the upper left. So this is what a cross-section might look like on Mars, built with cut stone or cement block or cast basalt. And anyway, you have to have maybe about 5 to 7 meters of regolith on top to hold the pressure. So this is the Mars version. This might be what you build on Earth. So you build a conventional structure. Inside it, you'd have the Mars masonry structure as if it was built and furnished from Mars materials. But then you can have a classroom or maybe a dance floor on top. To the right, you could have a high bay, 3 stories high, and you could say do bungee jumping, suspend elastics from the ceiling and feel what it would feel like, how high can you jump in 3/8 Martian gravity using the bungee cords. So this is an example of what you might build on Earth as a sort of exhibit center and test. Okay, there is more and more work on in situ materials and using them for construction. NASA had a 3D printed challenge. Some of the results were in the upper left. So they built a real structure. It wasn't full scale, but they built it inside a building, tested it, but then they had to destroy it because it was taking up space. So if we can get organizations like this to build at one location outdoors, we can incorporate these into this analog settlement. And I show other possible structures. So, and also it'd be a great place to have prototype vehicles for testing and demonstrations, et cetera. I paid some attention to revenue streams, general admission, hotel rooms, selling memberships, hopefully a lot of volunteer effort from groups organized within the Mars Society. I won't go into details, but if anybody wants to help with a business plan, please contact me. My address is at the bottom of many slides. Okay, so how would you use these structures? Well, I mentioned just demonstrating the building techniques, trying out and testing the building techniques. But if you get large enough and have some laboratory facilities and maybe a classroom or 2, You could, instead of holding a junior year abroad for college students, you could hold a junior year off planet. So we would encourage university professors to come here on their sabbatical year and do some research and also teach a class. University students could take a semester at this facility, take the classes, work in the research projects, and arrange for credit back at their home institutions. So junior year abroad is one important thing. And I mentioned that I'm one of the co-founders of Mars University. So I kind of secretly want a research station or a test bed for Mars U. Okay. Other formal education programs, classes for the high school level during school vacation, workshops for teachers, locations for science fair, demonstration and competition, professional short courses as are run by AIAA. As one of in order to get publicity for going to Mars, living on Mars, the prospects of living on Mars, I'd like it to be open to the public as much as possible. Some portions of it would have to be restricted, but try to make it look like what's known as a living history center, where you can go, the public can go, people can take their kids and see what it would look like if they were living on Mars. These pictures are from a place called Plymouth Plantation. It's a replica of the Plymouth village that the Mayflower pilgrims built just about an hour's drive south of me. And you can go there and talk to people. They're staff members who are professional actors, and they are pretending that they live in the year 1628. And I actually, so if you know your history, there was a Miles Standish who was the military commander at Plymouth Village. And I met a person pretending to be Barbara Standish, his wife, and I said, I'm working with a group that's thinking about going to a new location, sort of like you came from England to the Americas, and it's going to be very cold. We call it Mars. It's don't worry about where it is. Anyway, it's cold and the air is thin. And you, as a pilgrim who came over in the year 1628, what would you recommend me bring? And she thought for a while about it, and then she said, sheep. With sheep, you can get milk and wool and mutton to eat. So she recommended that I take sheep to Mars. So anyway, we can have a living history center where families can come and talk to people who are living on Mars and get the 21st century answer to what should you bring to Mars. We were offered a candidate site several years ago in California, halfway between LA and Las Vegas. You get off one of the interstate exits and turn right, and the pavement just ends, and there's this great big flat valley. I won't go into details, but it's kilometers across and nothing visible except when the train goes through a few times a day. So anyway, this is that site, and we were wondering, what's the lower cost way to get this started? So that Space Treehouse is already funded, but what can we do next? So ideally we'd want to get as much funding as possible, but here is a Mars habitat mock-up. It's an Airstream trailer, and you can get them used for several $1,000s and build a mock-up of a Mars settlement. In the interest of time, I'm just going to flip through the remaining slides. Here is a list of impacts on the public and on Mars Society members of having this facility, proposed interiors. Don't forget a gift shop. The informal education programs. In the middle is a drop box. You have a webcam in it, and you can make a film of a candle flame dropping in zero gravity. You can do this on Earth, but only for a fraction of a second. So that's an example of the activity that might be offered there. Let kids play with rovers. I mentioned bouncing in simulated 3/8 gravity. And it made a list of benefits to the Mars Society and any other groups that might be involved. And this is my summary slide. So if you folks think it's a good idea to build mock-ups of in situ constructed habitats, greenhouses, kitchens, workshops, etc. My address is second line from the bottom. And just the summary is it's a site for presentations, demos, formal education, the public to visit, etc. And I can take questions. Would someone say something just so I know my speaker works?
Yeah, your speaker works. Oh.
Okay, I have to turn my volume up. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, thanks so near the speaker. So no questions in chat. And does anyone have any questions out here?
I have a comment. Bruce, this is Charles Leatherwood.
Oh yeah.
Sorry you didn't make it out to the to the convention, but at least I catch you virtually here. Yeah. I just wanted to comment on it. I think it's a magnificent idea. You're aware of ours, and I think this has a lot of advantages over our a different thing. I like the permanence of it, and I like the fact that it expands through time, that you're able to show a progression of construction techniques through time, where our kind of in-sim thing was a moment. You get to show an entire footprint across decades or centuries, and I think that's a huge advantage of it. And also, depending on where you've located it, you know, with if you're outside of LA, all the space companies out in LA would seem to be natural funders for it. And
Sure,
excellent idea. I think it's just, I mean, a wonderful idea. Very good.
okay. For everybody else, Charles and I met many years ago and talked about a museum exhibit. And I actually supervised a capstone project to design a museum exhibit of how you might do 3D printing on Mars. And we also had back of the envelope sketches of what kids might do on Mars. By the way, this is one candidate site. Interstate 15 runs diagonally across the upper left. There's this big area that is just completely empty of human activities, except the Union Pacific Railway goes through it. But when the train's not there, you don't notice it. It's mostly government land, but there's a little bit of private property that was offered to us. Any other questions?
So not a question, but a comment, I believe, from, I'm going to butcher this, I'm so sorry. Amit Izar. Metal silo may be easily bought and used as habitat analog.
Okay, a metal silo. So I gather that's from from a remote person on the chat. Yes. What I really want is a 17-story high starship. And so they want to build a cylindrical building 17 stories high, 9 meters in diameter, and wrap it up and make it look like a starship. But it's hard to imagine affording that. If we had enough money to buy that, we might use the money in other ways. Okay, I'm not familiar with the cylindrical habitats, these cylindrical silos. It's hard to imagine having one horizontal, which is kind of a preferred way of living for many things. I was just assuming we would make a fiberglass tank, that is, blow up a cylindrical bladder, wrap it with fiberglass, which is exactly what you would do on Mars. So. Are there other questions or should I keep talking about cylinders?
Someone named Rob Dick. Hi, Bruce. This is Rob Dick, pronounced Dick. You asked me to help with the hillside settlement. If I can help, just ask.
Yeah. So Robert up in Canada, let me find a picture of the hillside settlement. So here it is. So Robert was one of the major people who was working on this settlement design. It's kind of hard to see there, but it was a masonry structure, and then you pull dirt down the hill on top of it and have fiberglass and aluminum structures as well. So thank you, Robert. See if I can...
Is the hillside settlement based on like masonry arches?
Yes, it is. Oh, where's a picture of those masonry arches? Okay, here we go. Oh, there's a cleaner view of the hillside settlement. I'll enlarge it right here. So most of the masonry is not visible. It's buried in the back because you need dirt to hold the roof down. And then you have greenhouses, the original tuna can habs brought from Earth, the power and manufacturing off on the left. All right, so this is a cross section of the hillside settlement. So you would remove the loose dirt at the bottom of the hill and lay foundations, which could be something called sorrel cement made on site from magnesium and calcium and chloride. And then build up masonry walls, vaults, and arches, and seal the inside with something. Enamel on the bricks or plastic or mylar or caulking. And then you put dirt on top to hold the air pressure down. In this case, since you're against a hillside, we're hoping to just pull the dirt down on top. And you can pressurize that. The Greeks and Romans could have built with that techniques if they on Mars if they had pressure suits. And somewhere here I have the artist rendition of it. I think this is it. Yeah, so here is a picture inside the let me through the wonders of PowerPoint, I'll show you a better view of the hillside settlement. So this is artist's conception of the interior of the masonry. I've never actually done this real-time PowerPoint modification. Okay, so this is by Phil Smith, and you see the arches at the top. There are barrel vaults, groin vaults, arches, arched walls, columns, and there's a balcony. So all of this would be masonry, mostly quarried rock. And then, but the balcony railing would be bamboo grown on site. And most of those plants are the final stage of the wastewater treatment. So you'd use natural bioreactors as much as possible and grow duckweed or plankton or water hyacinths to get the nutrients out of the wastewater. And then the final stage would be growing something else in the living quarters. And if you look in the very center, there is an airlock door. I don't know if you can see my cursor moving.
Yes.
But there is an airlock door. It's broken into sections with buttresses to hold the air pressure if one section is, if you have, say you have to reduce the pressure in one section for maintenance, you close all those doors, also in emergencies, of course. We are officially out of time, but there's no session after. So I will take.
Have you ever approached Disney?
We have not.
Just not interested.
No. I don't. I'm not good at that by myself. I am throwing this out there and see who wants to help. So this will not happen unless there is help over the next, few months or year. I had a similar proposal to the Mars Society more than 10 years ago, and the Mars Society put their effort into a more near-term project. So,
Well, good luck.
yeah, thank you. How many people are in the room?
Hundreds.
Last time I was told it was thousands.
We're down a little bit from that.
Yeah. They're off to the tour, I think.
Yes, so we have a reception happening right now, so.
So I'm competing with food. Well, I have an apple. There it is. And you definitely want greenhouses with different climates. So here's the apple and the banana from different greenhouses. All right, well, thank you very much. And those of you who are interested, there's my email address at the very bottom, bmackenzie@alum.mit.edu.
All right.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce Mackenzie. We very much appreciated your talk and have a good day.